The village and parish of Fina in County Leitrim are steeped in history. Those born and bred here, and all who live in the area, are heirs to a very long educational tradition. St. Kilian founded a school in the 6th century. The ancient abbey walls indicate a seat of learning in the 12th century. Our celebrations of 1998, however, are about more recent generations of scholars. After the Irish national school system was introduced in 1831, the first official schoolhouse was the small thatched building we now know as Cox's. Jimmy Cox, who lived beside the old hall and ball alley, was the local blacksmith, and he lives large in the memory of every past pupil. This small building housed about 80 pupils and survived throughout the famine times. In 1863, the school moved to Heaney's at the top of Noon's Brae. This was the schoolhouse accommodating up to 100 children until 1898. In 1898, Fina National School, the main focus of our celebrations, was built. Like the schools at Cox's and Heaney's, it was in the townland of Fina Beg. It was a fine building in its day and accommodated over 120 scholars at one stage. It was the principal seat of learning for 10 generations of Fina children. It's now the home of the Mullen family. In 1965, a new school was built on the Commons and named St. Kilian's National School. This became the central school for the whole parish, replacing Dramani, Kernagon, Gloucesterman and Fina Old School. Because of renovations to St. Mary's Church, Foxfield and the community centre, the Old School Reunion takes place in the new school and the Mass is in Gorva Chapel. Coming together are about 250 pupils from many countries. All have roots in Fina, and many haven't met for years. This is the time for registration, bringing back memories of many a roll call in the old days. One classroom is set aside for memorabilia: the masters' and mistresses' tables, old desks, maps, the press in the corner near the fireplace, the turf, the coal, and the bucket of water from Bland's well. But of course, it's the people who keep the memories alive. It's obvious they're enjoying themselves, and many are ready to share memories and stories of bygone days.
You must be old. How are you? Hello, and since he's the young one, the youngest of the old. You didn't see what he wasn't a bit anyway.
No, no. Hello, Billy. All right. All right. All right. Together here at the school. We had.
Were you with the one for you, Are you one of you with the last name?
Jared.
Yeah.
Hello, how are you?
Just past pupil from Fina Old School that we're here today. Can you remember when you went to school in Fenagh?
Of course I wouldn't mind when I went to school in Fenagh.
What year was it, Frank?
They want to say 1916.
1916, yeah. And
It was about 1970, I mind in 1916.
yeah, about 1917.
About 1970 I went to Fenagh school.
And can you remember any of the pupils that went to school in your time?
It wasn't all over classes and all, and all over class. You want the names, I suppose, and all. But my Jim, Jim wasn't like, no, we were hired. Willie McQueen, Mike Miller, and Mahabaden and William McQueenie. Stella Murphy, Mona Carey, and some of there was my own girl from Mahabaden.
That's right.
And,
That's right. Can you remember your school days, Frank?
Yeah, sure I can remember.
As clear as could be.
As clear as could be, sure.
That's great. Master Murphy and Miss Scollin were teachers.
Yeah, they were the teachers, and right good teachers were too.
Yeah. What does this day mean to you, Frank? Is this a great occasion to come back?
Great occasion, anyway.
Well,
Just a great occasion.
it is a great occasion. Well, Frank, we're delighted to have you, and I hope you enjoy your day.
Right, too, mate.
Best of luck to you.
What's this stuff?
You have a funny incident, a story to tell from your days in Fenagh School. Maybe you just tell it for us now.
I don't know, Michael, but there were several funny incidents indeed, but I think there was one thing that stuck out in my mind was there was one day there was came like a sudden thunder shower or something, and of course when play hour came the master wouldn't let us out to the yard. You could go out down to the toilet but run back. And Michael Sweeney was left doorman inside with a brush up against the door, you know. And when you came back then you were supposed to knock on the door and Michael let you in.
Yeah, there was a call.
But Michael was getting a little bit careless in the latter end, and this knock came to the door. Michael didn't take the brush from the door. The next thing it came a little bit louder. It still didn't come from the door. It came louder still. The next thing Michael pulled the brush from the door and he says, "Will you push, ye push," he says. And who walked in? Only Father Turtle. And from us being very, very aggressive young lads and everything, the next thing we're all little angels to see when we saw the priest coming in. And we thought that the priest would tell the master about us having terrible bad manners and everything. But when we saw him going in the door, I thought there was a smile on his face to see. He saw the funny side of it, but we thought we would be in deep trouble. But he didn't tell anything bad to the master anyway. Yeah. But I thought there were several funny incidents, you know. But that's the story, Michael.
Thanks very much, Paddy. All the time. I hope you kept looking at me.
Yeah, trying to.
You're right. John Ellis, TD, you went from Fina School to Dáil Éireann, and I think that's fairly unique. Maybe you tell us something about that.
Well, I suppose I'm the only one from it who was lucky enough to make it that far. When I was in Fina School, Dáil Éireann was so far away from my mind that I didn't even know where it existed. I left Fina when I was in 5th class, which was unusual at the time. But I don't know why. My father said that I should go to secondary school in Ballinamore, so I left at 12, which would normally at most would have been 13 or 14. Yeah. But I can always remember Fina School. The memories from Fina School would be very pleasant. I can remember Master Wren. I remember when I first went to school, to Mrs. Hearden was the teacher. And there's a very funny incident which probably stays with me more than anything else from my school days in Fina. She sent home a little note to my mother, Lord have mercy on her, to sew the pockets of my trousers that I put in most of the day with my hands in my pockets, and she couldn't get me to do anything. And I went to school the next morning not knowing that the hands was in the pockets, or the pockets had been sewn. And I went to put my hands in my pockets, and I can still see Mrs. Hearden looking down and saying, "Your mother got the note." I didn't realise what it was for a long time after. But I have fond memories of the old school as it was. Master Wren was very good to me. He was good to everybody. You always worried a little about him, that he could get cross. But when he got cross, he wasn't vindictive. And I think that's a very important thing in any teacher, that if they have a disagreement with any pupil at any stage, that it's forgot about there and then, it wasn't taken in the next day. And that was definitely his way of teaching. He also taught us a lot of things that stayed with us in later life. He gave us an opportunity to respect our fellow pupils, and that was important, because you respect everybody irrespective of where they come from or what they have done or what they may do in your life. Because as you travel the world, you'll discover that humility and courtesy is the two cheapest commodities. But you remember very quickly the people who don't treat you courteously. The people who are courteous to anybody will be well remembered, and I think that the teachers in Fina would be well remembered by the pupils for their courteous way of looking after us. It's much different to now. There was no television, there was a radio, the school tally sheet went up every day, the tally board. In fact, it's good to see it inside today. It's one of the real reminders. And to see the pouch and tobacco knife and pipe of Master Wren is something else that it's a total memory, and it's a memory that's fond I think for everybody. And to look back on it and to look at where I've been since, I still think that they were the most carefree days of my life. It's now a different and much faster world, and the way that Fina School was in those days would be the ideal situation if we all could have life like that. There's no doubt about it.
Thanks very much, John.
No problem. Thanks, Michael.
Enjoy your day.
Well, it's a great day for everybody, I think. It's a great day.
Thank you very much. Vera Carey, sitting in the trap that Miss Scotland used to come to school in Fina. Miss Scotland taught from, I think it was 1875 to 1925, and she used this trap and a donkey to travel to school. Brian Kennedy, who was holding the pony, acquired the trap some time ago and restored it to its beautiful condition that you can see today, and we're very grateful to Brian for doing that. Formerly Vera Carey, of course. You're now sitting, as we mentioned before, in your teacher's, Miss Scotland's trap.
Oh, only just about 80. And the owner of the trap was Miss Scotland, the former assistant teacher in the school, Fina School, to which I went in the first days of my life. I was 5 years, in 1916. That's the age for you all now, when I started school. And I have very happy memories of Miss Scotland. She was a very gentle, I would call little old Victorian lady, is my memory of her. And my mother was a teacher also, and she sent me on a message with a sister of mine over to Miss Scotland with a message. And Miss Scotland, at 8 years we were, she brought us to her sitting room, put us sitting in very comfortably, and they gave us each a glass of sherry. The first glass of wine I was ever given at 8 years. And I'm 80 years having it on and off, so if you want a recipe for long living, get down to your sherry. She taught the infants in the school I was in Fina. Master Murphy was in the senior part of it. But this is the actual trap. I believe that God bless poor Miss Scotland. I hope she's better off than any of us are. She used to bring us to school in this trap because we came the same road. And I'm very happy to be allowed to speak here. And I'm thanking everybody who found me out and brought me back here after all those years. I'm probably the oldest person in the party. I'd love to know anybody who's over 90. Anybody over 90?
No, I don't think
no,
so.
they're not listening. Well, then anybody. Anybody over 87? Oh, I'm the eldest in the party.
Yes.
I'm probably the eldest in the party here today, but God has left me very good health, by and large. So I don't know what else to say, but that they are having a lovely, enjoying themselves very much, and I'm very thankful to everybody.
Thank you very, very much. That's Vera Carey. Now, in the trap today also, we have Jimmy McHugh, who came from America, wasn't it, Jimmy, to be with us today. Have you any little memories or anything you'd like to say? Just.
I'm sorry, I don't have any memories of Miss Scotland, but this horse and trap brings back a lot of memories to me. I haven't seen one now in about 45 years. That's about as long as I've been in the United States. And, well, I'll turn you over to my sister Teresa here. She may know a little bit more than I.
No, I don't.
And I remember Vera Carey McCarthy.
That's right, yes.
When she was the librarian in Baltimore. She's a little bit older than me. Not a lot, no, but a little bit, you know. So at this point, I'd like to thank all around Fenagh for putting on this reunion. It's really great to be here, to be able to meet a lot of the kids that I went to school with, including Michael McKeown over here. He seems to be the MC. Yeah. And I'm a little bit older than Michael. Not an awful lot, but a little bit. I knew Jimmy, Father Jimmy McKeown. Played football with him back in the early 50s. And he's here also, he's around somewhere. Maybe I'll get to talk to him later on. But at this point now, I'll turn you over to Michael and Teresa. Maybe she would have better memories of Miss Scotland than I.
Well, I just have one memory I have of Vera Carey McCarthy. I used to do her hair in Ballinamore, and she was such a lovely person, and she still is.
Thank you very much.
Oh.
Thank you very much, Teresa. That was very nice. Now we have Pat Duffy, who also came all the way from America. Maybe you would have something you'd like to say, Pat.
Thank you so much. This is a wonderful I'm lost for the word. To be here, to come all the way from America for this, it is just lovely to meet everybody and so many people that I haven't seen in years and years. And I have lovely memories of going to Fina school. Like I remember, like for me, it was Mrs. Gannon and Master Wren in my days. And let me tell you, it was like he was tough, but he was good. And I have very, very pleasant memories of it. And I wish to thank everybody for this lovely occasion and so grateful to be a part of it today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Pat. Thank you.
That's for this fella.
Oh, is that for him?
Oh, yeah, that's for him. He's entitled to that now after this.
What breed of pony is he?
I don't honestly know. I just bought him there last Tuesday for this because I couldn't get a donkey.
Yeah.
And he's very small, but he'll grow a bit more.
Sorry. You remember Courtman's where they used to have a little horse and tractors like this too.
Yeah.
Sorry, will you just move over there because
Oh, sure. Oh, I'm sorry.
Brian Kennedy, thanks very, very much for coming today with this beautiful restored trap that belonged to the former teacher, Miss Scollin, so many years ago. Could you tell us, Brian, how you acquired this trap?
I bought it off P. Mulvey in Gubbs about 12 years ago. And the shafts were in bad condition and the wheels were in bad condition at that time. And he had just thrown it outside and covered with a bit of polythene at that stage. I had left it in a shed hoping to restore it at some stage, and earlier in the year a friend of mine, he's a priest in the missions, and he asked me if he could take it and restore it. And I was only too delighted. So he restored it with the help of a man from Tullamore. He was a travelling man who made rebuilt the wheels. There's approximately a third of the original wheels there, but the body is completely original. And when we were restoring it, we found a date on the axle, 1899. So it was then we started to trace to see where it come from before P. Mulvey bought it, and we found it was this Miss Scollin that owned it.
So you didn't know when you were buying it that it belonged to Miss Scollin, obviously?
No, I didn't know. It was only late that I found out.
There must be an awful lot of work in restoration.
There's a lot of work, although I did very little of it. I was very lucky in getting Father Bill Gent to take it on and to do it, and Don McKeown and Damien Martin did the striping on it. So I was very lucky with it. I had very little to do with it.
Thanks again, Brian. Thanks very much.
In 1924 to Fina School.
Do you remember any of the pupils who went to school in your time?
Yes, I do. Kevin Leddy, Tommy Harkin, Francie Harkin, Eddie Gallagher, Sean Gallagher, Michael Fox, and Sonny Fox, and many, many more.
Son, I often heard you talk about the number of pupils that came to Fenagh School from Ahavadden. Can you recall any of that for us?
32 children came out Fina Beg Lane from Ahavadden and Fina Beg, all at the one time. Today there's one man
one resident
in Ahavadden.
Changed times.
That's right.
Son, can you recall any characters that were around in those days?
Well, yes, I can. There were so many characters in my time that if I started to tell you about them, I would be here for an hour.
Well, tell us about some of them anyway.
But I'll tell you one of them. Gusty Welsh. He was the greatest character ever lived in Fina.
Yes?
He went to school in my day.
I say. Gusty died young, didn't he?
Died young.
Yeah. Well, he was some character, I believe.
The greatest ever was in Fina.
Any story come to mind about Gusty?
Well, we used to go to football matches, and your dad as well, Tommy Kerrigan, Pat Heaney, and Gusty always got into the car. He was always handy and easy to get in with, and you couldn't keep him out.
And you know he was in it.
And no one slept in the car while he was there.
Did that indeed. Look, son, thanks very much for telling us more stories, and I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the day.
Thanks very much.
Francis McManus, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
Can you tell us when you went to Fenagh School?
1949. Although in this book I noticed it's 1950 or 1951, but in fact it was 1949.
If you say that, John, we'll have to believe.
Yeah.
Any memories from your time in Fenagh School that you'd like to share with us today?
Several.
I'll just give us one or two.
Some more easily to share than others. One would be the teaching of the long catechism.
None of us ever forgot that.
With which I had great difficulty.
How much of it can you remember today, John?
The way I interpret it, I can remember most of it. But I'll just give you this little story from Master In, and it'll tell you what my status in the catechism class was at that time. That time there were 4 schools in the parish, and at the time of confirmation, the bishop would interview a selected number from each school, boys and girls, and he would ask them a few questions and they would answer, and of course they were judged by the quality of the answer. And in my case, Master In was selecting the boys and the girls from Fina who would be chosen to answer these, go up to the bishop. And there were just from memory, about 8 boys in the confirmation class, because the classes were grouped like 4th, 5th, 6th and so on. And he went down the line. Now, if he calls 1 boy from Fina, 2 from Cornagun, 3 from Manit, the boy that will go up is boy A from this class. And he got towards 6 and 7 and 8, which were the lower numbers in the class. And he said, now, should he call 6 boys from Fina, I think Brendan Byrne will be the man to go up there. And should he call 7 boys from Fina, the man to go up should be Sean Meehan, I think. I hope he said he doesn't, but should it come to it. But he said, Lord, between us and all harm, should he ask for 8 boys from Fina, well, I'm afraid, John Francis McManus, you'll have to be the boy. So that'll tell you now my status in the long catechism.
Okay, John. Now, you're a businessman in England. Would you think that your education in Fina National School gave you the base to build on?
Most definitely. And many times I think back about who gave us the basic values which we have today. And I have to say that parents, teachers, community, but ranking very highly on that would be teachers. And those values have stuck. And the 3 R's have stuck: reading, writing, arithmetic. And they were so valuable all through life, and the basis was Fina National School. One would have to say that. Where else would it come from? That's what it's given me. Values above all else. Yeah.
John, what changes do you see around Fina since you left? In the late 50s, was it, John? Early 60s?
Late 50s.
50s.
Yeah. 61.
Nearly 40 years ago.
Yeah, nearly 40 years ago. Phenomenal changes. Phenomenal. Obviously, standard of housing, cars. But there were ponies and traps and old cars in the late 50s, early 60s. The odd person would have a new car. There were still Hackney cars being done in Fina.
That's right.
But most of all, the change in the young people. Yes. In the late 50s or early 60s, you could identify the region from which a young person came by his accent and his manner and his dress even. And that is completely changed today. You can look at any one of these young boys or girls today, and you couldn't tell from which part of Ireland they came, whether they came from town or country. You couldn't judge them by their accent or anything else. The standard of education has increased 100%, and their presentation and their confidence. Young lads were shy and retiring in my era and would keep their heads down and keep a low profile. And today, no, they're so confident, and it's great.
It is indeed, John. It is indeed. Just briefly, and very briefly, John, could you tell us what this weekend means to you?
It's hard to sum it up in a few short words, but I've met people here today whom I haven't seen for 38 years. And but for the name tag on their coat, or but for an introduction, I wouldn't know who they were. And it's so lovely just to renew that acquaintance. And we may not see these people again, or they may not see us. That above all, and the community spirit. Yes. It's so lovely to see the community spirit, and to see names which go back for generations, family names which go back for generations. You know, you have people like the McLaughlins, your own McKeowns, and you can go up there to Fina graveyard and you'll see those names on headstones going back for 4, 5, 6 generations. And that sense of belonging and that sense of community. And I fear that it's so fast disappearing. It's disappeared in the cities. It doesn't happen in the cities. But even here, it's beginning to disappear. And there are obviously newcomers to the village and names. I saw a girl on the road the other day and I said, "What's your name?" And, you know, that's another thing. Going back to the 60s, you meet a girl on the road and say, "What's your name?" And you automatically knew who she was. But I'll meet some... you see a family resemblance. Here you'll ask a girl, "What's your name?" And there'll be a name mentioned and you won't know. You know, there'll be somebody new in the village, you know. None the worse for that, of course. But, yes, the sense of community and that the community values.
Okay,
that's
John.
What it means to us. Yeah.
Thanks very much for talking with us.
Thanks,
and enjoy your weekend.
Yeah. Thanks for all your efforts.
Thank you very much
in organising this.
Thank you.
Actually missed
Gives the ball away. We're in stoppage time. Galway lead by 2 points. 1 goal and 16 and 19 to 17 points. What an occasion. What a match.
Past students and friends, it's my pleasant duty here this evening to welcome everybody to this historic location, very lovely location, on this historic occasion, the centenary reunion of the old school in Fenagh. We all share the common experience here this evening, well, the past students do, share the common experience of having attended that old school and all the memories that evokes. It's an evening for memories and for reliving the past and reawakening acquaintances, meeting people that we haven't seen for a very long time in some cases. People have come here from very far in many cases. People have come from just down the road. But all in all, it's a very memorable occasion, and I hope everybody enjoys it. For many people, looking around Fina is probably a bit different, quite a bit different from when they attended the old school. It's still basically a small rural place with its own natural charm, but it has changed in many ways. We all remember in fact very few of us remember seeing electricity in the old school. Only probably pupils of the last 5 years. Running water was unheard of. Telephones was something they had in cities. Nonetheless, in these primitive conditions, life has own charm and quality, and people enjoyed their school experiences. I suppose the essentials were there, even though the practicalities of comfort weren't available. People got a good basic education, and I suppose what contributed to this was the quality of the teaching in the school, and also the interest of the parents of us as children. The inspiration, I suppose, and the dedication of the committee, but I think we must particularly refer to our chairman, Patrick Greenman, whose work in this project was enormous. Some of the qualities that he contributed to this was the ability to get people to work with him. He managed to hook in a committee, despite our natural reluctance, I suppose, to get involved in any extra work. Most of us are already busy enough. But he had a great ability of, I suppose, twisting your arm without you feeling too much pain. And I suppose that probably best describes it. And getting you to commit yourself to do things before you had realised what you had done, like acting as MC, for instance. He had a great ability to get people to work, but he certainly didn't shun work himself. From one meeting to the next, he managed to have an enormous amount of work done, and I think that speaks for itself. I would like to particularly welcome our oldest member, past student member here today. That's Frank McGrail. I think he deserves a special word of thanks. I think great credit also goes to the people from distant parts who made a great effort to come here and to make this occasion complete, because it's only comes together with the presence of so many people from different generations, different decades, but with the one common experience that I have referred to. One of the main proceedings of the evening is to launch our magazine, which many of you have already seen, and I think you will appreciate as being a very valuable contribution to this overall celebration. We have selected, as a committee, we have selected our veteran member, and I hope you won't mind me referring to him in those terms, and that's Son McLaughlin. So I'm going to call on Son to officially launch the commemorative booklet of our centenary celebration.
Past pupils and friends, I was delighted to be asked to launch the Fina School Commemorative booklet. Over the last 9 months or so, I have been working with the committee organising the reunion and the magazine. In a situation like this, I am grateful to be here and to have been asked to perform the launch of this collection of memories, photographs, articles and stories which make me up our magazine. A central part of our school reunion celebrates the production of a magazine. It gives people a chance to share their memories and stories with others who would have shared experience. When you have time to read the magazine, you might remember the gasping on the heights of the goal post in Fina football field, and Vera Carey did on her first day to school. Certainly, some of the younger past pupils will know the prisoners who were released and was ordered by Jack McManus, the Lord rest him, his soul. And some may even remember the day that Father Jimmy Bland turned his hand to Barbreen during lunchtime. Probably the most valuable part of the magazine is that when all the excitement and celebrations of reunion has died down and people have gone back to their four corners of the world, they will have with them a meaningful sovereign of their memorial events, something they can take out and brow through in front of their fires on a long winter's night when Fina might be very far away. Putting a magazine together is a different task, but putting the magazine together was labour of love. When the committee asked for articles and paragraphs of the magazine, they were amazed at the wealth of material which was offered. On behalf of the committee, I would like to thank everyone who submitted articles and photographs. Without them, there would be no magazine. But a special word of thanks must go to the editor and chairman, Pacho Greenan. His enthusiasm, his dedication and hard work ensured that the magazine we have here today came into existence. I know you will appreciate the great effort he has made and the great success he has achieved. Reverend Father, sisters, ladies and gentlemen, I formally launched the Fina School Cemetery Reunion magazine, and I trust it would provide you with many interesting amusements and memories. God bless you.
Thank you very much, son. Now it's time for our chairman's address. So I'd like to call on our chairman, Pacho Greenan, to say a few, probably more than a few words to you.
First of all, I'd like to thank Pat and Son for their generous comments. I'll tell you one thing, it was much easier to compile a magazine and to do an awful lot of work than to make a speech to you people. I was actually so busy for the last few days that I didn't have time to rehearse my speech, so I'll probably be reading most of it. Fellow past pupils and friends, I'm very happy to be here today as a past pupil and chairman of the organising committee. Today and tomorrow is the culmination of an idea which started almost 12 months ago. A number of reunions have taken place in this county over the last few years, and with the centenary of our school coming up, we were encouraged to get our own show on the road. The result is that we have people here in Fina today from 4 corners of the earth. Indeed, we have 4 continents represented: America, Australia, Africa, and of course Europe. I would like to extend a céad míle fáilte raibh gach duine. Our school, village and parish are greatly honoured by your presence here. It is now 33 years since the school closed. During the 77 years of its existence, 365 boys and 333 girls, a total of 998, approximately 1,000 were registered. Only about 250 are still living, so feel privileged that you're one of those. I'm not sure whether those of us who stayed at home and, as to say, worked the home farm were better or worse off than those who had to immigrate or seek work elsewhere. In my own case, circumstances at the time prevented me from doing something different. We all have memories of our days at the old school. I suppose very few of us liked going to school, but we wouldn't mind turning back the clock and doing it all over again. I remember each morning when I went around Redner's Turn hoping that the school would be either burned down or on fire. I regarded myself as a very ordinary pupil, and it was only when I went to the vocational school in Kershcarrigan I realised how much I had learned in Fina, and that I was much better educated than most of my colleagues and comrades. Thanks to Master Inn and Mrs. Gannon, I was well equipped for the trials and challenges of life. When we started on this reunion campaign, the committee members were apprehensive. As I look around here today, I realise there was no need to be. We are simply overjoyed because our efforts are richly rewarded by this excellent turnout of past pupils. I would like to thank all who helped in any way to make this weekend possible. Our sponsors, all who placed advertisements in the magazine, all who donated money, all who gave bits and pieces of memorabilia of the school and the past. John Ellis, who sponsored the postage, Father Doyle and the Board of Management for the use of this school. Because of the fact that the church is under reconstruction, we were unable to have the celebrations in the community centre. Nevertheless, this school has worked very well, and I'm delighted that we had it and had the accommodation. I would like to thank my fellow committee members in a special way. They were an excellent group to work with. We had some great laughs together, and it helped to make the workload much lighter. Now the committee members are Michael McKeown, Treasurer, Pat Rinn, PRO, Sun McLaughlin, Mary Bohan, Leo Burden and Keelan Ellis. Have I left out somebody? Not really. Greta, our most efficient secretary. Now I'm sure other committee members won't mind if I say a special thank you to Greta. Greta was the type of secretary all committees would like to have. She really kept everything moving in the right direction and left nothing to chance. I would also like to thank Jimmy Lennon and the Fina Development Committee who worked in conjunction with us to make this weekend a weekend to remember in our village. And at that, I hope you all support the dances in the marquee on tonight and tomorrow night. I don't know what time to start, but I'm sure you'll find out. Lastly, I would like again to thank all of you for coming here this evening, especially those of you who travelled half the way around the world. And enjoy the festivities and go around Mila Mayag agus banach J.R. of Golair.
Thank you very much, Pat Joe. We felt, the committee felt that it would be appropriate that a past student who lives abroad, who had come from abroad, should also be represented here in making a speech. So we got our heads together, and I think we had no difficulty in selecting the person we did. John Francis McManus is a friend to many people here. He returns very often. He's a man of great generosity. He has, I know, helped many people who have gone to London, helped them on their feet. I myself went when I was trying to earn a few pounds in summer holidays, and he looked after me very, very well. Many people have had a similar experience with John. We feel he's a very appropriate man to speak here. He's a great interest in the place, great interest in the old school, in the community as it is today, and I would like you to put your hands together and welcome John here.
Well, with an introduction like that, it can only go downhill from here. Reverend fathers, reverend sisters, ladies, gentlemen, Fina men and Fina women. It's good to be back. I left here in 1961 at the age of 16. I've been coming back for 38 years. I and many others here have made good lives elsewhere for our families and for communities. But each time I return down that Mull Road and I look down, and to my right I can see Fina Lake, and to my left Gray Lake, and in the distance the rectory and the village, and a tear comes to my eye, and I think I'm home. There are, of course, older and wiser exiles here in this group who would be better suited to this job. I feel out of place, and it's presumptuous of me in a way to represent exiles. I'm talking about people like Jim Fox, whom I see over there in the group. He should really be here, or someone else like him. However, if the talk doesn't go well, blame the committee and Patrick Greenan. They were the ones who made the choice, and I won't forgive them. For me, this weekend started in about March of this year. One Saturday morning, sitting down at the end of the table in the kitchen to breakfast, eating the all bran. The roughish is good, you know. There was a white envelope propped up on the milk jug in front of me. And this white envelope had a green harp on, the insignia of Leinster House, the Republic. Now, when we get that kind of communication in England, it's got a crown on, and it's OHMS, on Her Majesty's service. And I can tell you that Her Majesty doesn't write to Irishmen in particular for any great reason. Other than perhaps to demand a tax, or to serve you with a speeding notice, or something even worse, you know. And I looked at this letter from Leinster House, and I thought, well, now, why would the government be writing to me? And then I saw the postmark. That's the next thing that took my eye on this, this white envelope, not a brown envelope, nice white envelope. And that postmark was Connaughon on Motherua. Connaughon on Motherua. And I thought, well, I wonder where this hill could be in Leinster House, or where could this Motherua be? And then of course I translated it, and it was the little hill of the red fox. And then of course things started to click. Little hill of the red fox. The little hill of the red dog, I thought first, but then it came to me, Motherua, fox, little hill of the red. Ah, it's Foxfield, it has to be Foxfield. And then, of course, I turned over the envelope, and on the back was Greta Fanning. And I thought, Greta Fanning, no, she's a stranger, whoever she is. But, of course, it wasn't, she wasn't a stranger, she was Greta Byrne. And then I realized on opening the letter that this was an invitation to an exile, to a special get-together. And the postage was, and the Leinster House connection came from John Ellis. I have a confession to make. Normally when I stand in a group like this, I get assistance from Arthur and John. That's Guinness and Jemison. I don't have that assistance today, so I'm flying solo. What did Fina National School mean? What does Fina National School mean to me? Well, of course, I would say, in a word, Fina National School gave us values. The values, the difference between right and wrong, bad and good. Do the decent thing. Don't tell lies. Help one another. Individuality. Think for yourself. Don't necessarily go with the herd and go with the crowd. Think for yourself. Make your own mind up. These values were also given to the oldest exiles here this evening. Jim Fox, I've already mentioned. Another, yet older, is Maggie Melia of Baden, who is 86 years. On behalf of the exiles, I thank all of those involved with this weekend, the whole of the organising committee. I won't repeat their names, they're in the book. Long live Fina, long live its people. Thank you very much.
John, I don't think you have anything to blame the committee for. You've done a good job. Very nice speech. Thank you. Part of John's speech referred to the letter arriving and the drama around that and the Oireachtas letter. And that leads me on to our next speaker. I'd like to call on our local public representative, John Ellis, TD, to say some words to the group gathered here. John.
How do you follow an act like that? Because John Francis, as I knew him, or John as we all know him, I can remember him going to school. I can remember a lot of people here going to school. There's a lot of people here that I wasn't even a bad thought when they left out of Fina to go right around the world. When you come back today, and I suppose being one of the last who left the school. I left the school in 1964. I took early retirement then, because the fact was I left in 5th class. But what John Francis McManus has said, I think, has stayed with me in the very same way. That is the fact that we learned certain values in that school that we have taken with us, irrespective of where we went in life afterwards. When I left there, I hardly knew where Leinster House was. I probably didn't know at the time who the Taoiseach of the day was. But time changes everything for everybody, because you move on and you do different things. This committee here today, led by Patrick Greenan, in my opinion, has done more for this parish than has been done for it in quite a number of years. The last occasion in the parish like this was the opening of the football field. That was another big occasion where many exiles came back to celebrate that with the people who had remained at home. Some of us have had the benefit of being able to remain at home and remain in our own country. But for those who had to leave, it must be a big change to come back. And what John said about coming up and coming to the top of the hill and looking down over Bray and over Fina lakes, it's the same for me. I'm glad to come down that road most Thursday evenings, and when you come across at Gloucesterman, you say you're home. And home is where we all want to be as much time as possible, and home is where your heart is. For those who come back here today as immigrants, you will see an awful lot of changes. Some for the better, some for the worse. But we all come back, most of us, with one memory. That is of the teachers that taught us of that school. I remember Mrs. Hearden. I had her for only about 6 months. I told the joke earlier on, and I'm not going to repeat, about the note that she sent home. It wasn't the first one that was sent home about me, nor it wasn't the last. And I've got them home since as a parent, but you have to accept those things as the world goes on. She taught us things. Miss Fitzsimons taught us things. And then I went into the master's room. The master to me was somebody whom we all feared, but who treated us all very, very fairly. And if you did your stuff, you hadn't to worry. If you misbehaved, you had to take the consequences. And it's the same in the world outside. If you do what you're supposed to do, you'll be okay. If you make mistakes, you pay for them. But I think that Master Wren, as John Francis McManus said, left us with values. And Patrick Green had said something earlier that was much more relevant. That was that when we left there, we had the basic grinding of a good education. Well, I left a year early, and I headed off to secondary school, and I managed to survive with the lads who had done 7th class in some cases, and the minimum that any of them had done was 6th. So that showed one thing, that we all left with a good grinding from national school, and we all left with good memories. If it was kicking an old ball at the back at the end of the school in 2 foot of mud and dirt, and at that stage Ben Wren was the best player that was around in my time, and for a long time afterwards, as far as the schoolyard football was concerned. But those are the memories that we all have. But to this committee, we owe great depth of gratitude. We owe them the gratitude of bringing us all back together to celebrate 100 years of the old school as we knew it. But I would say one thing, and I see the principal of the present school here, Sheila Cooney, with us. Would somebody ever make sure that all the photos of the classes are stacked away in some cupboard, so that those who come after us, probably in 100 years' time, will be able to see how their fathers, grandfathers, or great-grandfathers, as the case may be, were educated, and who was in the class with them. Because we all know that when we look back, that is the one thing that probably we miss most, that many of the school group photographs are not available and have been lost. Not due to anybody's intention, but due to the fact that probably people brought them home and they thought that they looked better 20 years later, and they decided it was time to get rid of it. But once again, to this committee, I think we all owe them a great debt of gratitude, and I'd ask everybody to put their hands together and give them a round of applause. I'd like to thank Brian Kennedy here, who has brought a nice centrepiece to the
outdoor activities here, his pony and trap, and that trap, as you know, is the old trap of Mrs. Scollin, the original, restored by Brian himself, and it has provided a great backdrop for photographs, and we would like very much to thank Brian for that. I'm sure you all have been in the room with the memorabilia, some genuine pieces of the old school there, the old press of the master's room, the table as well, a few other objects on the table that you mightn't want to, well, you can comfortably look at now, but not back when you were in school, you wouldn't. I'm sure you've all been around there, and if you haven't, don't miss it. We have some short piece of entertainment now. We have some the local dancers coming on. It's fairly brief, but nonetheless, I hope you'll enjoy it. So, our dancers are Noreen Tubman, Aoife Rin, Leonora Nellis, Davina Lynn, Sinead McLaughlin, Laura Doonan, Adeline McQueenie, Tracy McLaughlin, Jeanette Lynn, and Niamh Reynolds. wish you a very enjoyable weekend. Hope that the rest of the weekend is as good and successful as it has been this evening. And I know people have enjoyed themselves, and it's great to meet old friends and renew acquaintances. And thank you very much.
1950. And Pat McKeown would like to present it to the organising committee and to all the past pupils. Thank you very much, Pat. Now, he has also got a picture of the McKeown family. Again, thank you, Pat.